A little bit about myself. I am a manager of FinOps and M&A at IEM Manufacturing. Previously, I was at UKG for almost 20 years in a variety of progressive roles. Lastly, being the leader of their FinOps organization, as well as their cloud services organization. So I started kind of on the tech side, very tech forward software, the largest HCM product that's privately held in the world. And then now I am at a smaller organization doing FinOps as well and kind of seeing the other side of it, right? So um, kind of the two different scales. Most FinOps materials that you see, presentations that you watch currently are about the new shiny objects. They're about the new technologies, the new cloud natives that are out there, the Kubernetes, the everything that's out there that everybody wants to use, AI, obviously. And one thing that I've noticed as I've started working with other organizations that may not be as tech forward is they try to get FinOps off the ground. They go out to the FinOps organization website, they do a quick search of FinOps, and there's this overwhelming amount of information. What is that distilled down? What does that look like? How do I get things off the ground, right? A lot of these teams have multiple responsibilities. They're not just a FinOps team. They're also your IT backbone. They're your finance team sometimes, right? And then suddenly they're tapped on the shoulder saying, hey, we're using this new cloud thing. We need to start reporting on it. How do we understand what we're actually doing? How do we understand our cost and our growth, which is what FinOps is, right? So large tech is handled one way. There's dedicated teams, there's dedicated resources. Smaller organizations across multiple industries, think manufacturing, healthcare, construction, et cetera, have to approach it a little differently. So if you're a seasoned practitioner, if you're part of a larger organization that has a large, robust FinOps team, enjoy your break, go get a cup of coffee, et cetera. But if you're just starting out, if you're trying to figure out what steps do I need to take to get into FinOps, this is what I wanted to kind of cover over the next 15 minutes or so. So what do you do first, right? You want to establish a strong foundation. Foundation is key to everything, both buildings as well as teams, as well as relationships. So naming and tagging, it's obvious. There are tools out there to help you if you don't have a naming and tagging standard. But naming and tagging is key to FinOps. Everybody out there will say can't do any reporting unless you have a name or a tag, right? So getting that established is as a standard upfront is key. I lived through a tagging nightmare of millions of assets, no tags, trying to get those tagged. That project started 4 different times over the course of about 5 years and never got to more than about 92% tagged. So it is a very important thing to get upfront. Automated is obviously best, but getting something out there, even in small environments, helps tremendously. And then retention policies. A lot of organizations don't even think about retention until suddenly they run out of hard drive space or your storage bill runs up because you've got files from 15 years ago that nobody's touched, or somebody said, hey, we might need those one day. Retention policies are important not only for compliance, but also from a security perspective, as well as just general maintenance and cost perspective. Second would be deploy tooling. There's a ton of FinOps tools out there. If you had asked, 6, 7 years ago, what do I do to start reporting? There weren't a lot of tools on the market. People were building their own. I did an entire presentation on building your own tool at FinOps X a few years ago because nothing on the market at the time fit the needs that we had. Now there are dozens of tools out there. They're all very good. They all have their strengths. And so find a tool that will provide you the basic reporting, take the guesswork out of the reporting, and help you advance past that first step. When your cloud spend is low, your tool cost is low as well. Usually at that stage, they are a percentage of your spend. So you're able to deploy a tool, try it, test it out. If it doesn't work, you simply stop using it and switch to something else. So use the old adage of fail fast. Deploy something. If it doesn't work for your needs, you can't get it to work the way you want, or there's something out there that does it better. Pivot, switch. It's not a huge investment, and you can find something that works for you while you're small. Once you get to the 6, 7, 8 figures of cloud spend a year, it is a lot harder to switch tools, not only from a data perspective, but also a cost perspective, because then you run into set budgets and things like that. And also apply FinOps principles to your tool selection. You don't need to go out and buy something that has a full DevOps solution, a Kubernetes management platform, all of that embedded into it if you don't need it. Find something that fits what you need. If you don't have Kubernetes and you just need reporting, find something that has that reporting. Obviously there's different pricing for different tools. Maybe it'll save you some money on the tool as well, but you don't need every bell and whistle to just get off the ground with your FinOps journey. You can always upgrade to those later. The organization comes out and says, hey, we're advancing. We're going to move cloud native. We're going to do Kubernetes. That's when you show, hey, I can still do this reporting, or I need to advance my tooling to support the Kubernetes move or other technologies that are out there. And then building that reporting. So great, you have a tool, you can understand where your spend is. Now you build and share those reports. And I would say overshare those reports. Start creating them, sending them out, asking for feedback, asking if anybody has questions. You're building awareness and understanding of what cloud is. Expect questions. Expect people to come and say, I don't know what this means, or what about this? And modify those reports and build them so that everybody's on the same page, everybody understands your spend, and you can track it month over month. It shows the value of what you're doing. It shows the value of the tooling, but also the overall concept of we are tracking our spend, we're keeping an eye on it, and we are doing what we can to support the business. And then introducing yourself to relevant teams. So usually wearing multiple hats, you're supporting IT, you're approving invoices for finance, you are working with architecture on what they need from a hardware software perspective, or engineering. You want to introduce yourself with a FinOps persona in a FinOps persona conversation. So yes, I've been the one you come to for all your IT needs. I'm the one you come to for all your approvals for IT. Now I'm coming to you with a cost conscious lens. I want to talk through how we're building things, what we're buying, what we're putting where, and building that cohesive unity within the organization to approach these topics and these subjects together. If things are fractured, it's very hard to make progress. If you're knocking on the door to engineering saying, hey, we need to retool this because it's costing way too much money, and you've never brought it up to them before, they're not going to open the door. They don't want to. They have tech debt to deal with. They have other things to deal with. And I know other presenters have talked about working with engineering and other teams. That is key. And it's easiest to do that up front. Everybody's on the same page, even in the same room, talking about it, working together on it. What details do you want to see on the spend reporting? How can I help you understand what your impacts are to our spend? And that's across every department, mostly within the organization. Again, from accounting to engineering to architecture to DevOps to, depending on the organizations, depending on which ones those have, but you get the idea. That leads right into influencing those architecture and deployment conversations. So, if you're just lifting and shifting, there may not be a whole lot of architecture going on. Yes, we're spinning up some VMs, we're connecting the network, we're lifting and shifting. You may be limited on what you can do to reduce some of that spend or optimize. But you lift and shift in, and then you review and watch, and then you optimize. Use the recommendations, look at other options for those existing applications that are now running in the public cloud. Even though there's a lot of cloud native stuff out there, there's a ton of really cool applications and systems now running off of cloud native solutions. There's even more on-prem solutions or on server solutions that are running in public cloud as a lift and shift. That is still a massive amount of the workloads in public cloud, and there's still a lot to go. There's a lot of stuff sitting on servers under people's desks. There's a lot of stuff sitting in data rooms. There's a lot of stuff sitting in data centers that has not moved yet. So this is going to be an ongoing thing, no matter what organization you're at, unless you're at a net new OpenAI or cloud native organization. You're going to have stuff that needs to get moved due to end of life of hardware, due to company goals. So you're going to work on lifting and shifting and then optimizing after that. You're going to notice spend reporting on all my slides. It is probably the most efficient way of spreading knowledge, but also awareness of what spend is. Overshare those reports, copy people on those reports that may or may not be interested until they say, hey, I really don't need this, or hey, can you share this with this person as well? Showing things like compute, virtual machine usage, network bandwidth utilization, and how we're expanding our footprint and our cost is important to everybody within the organization. And then being at the table for those architecture discussions. Okay, we lifted and shifted one of our key applications into the public cloud. Now we want to take it and move it to a cloud native service, or we want to upgrade it to something else that we have to design. If you've already been in conversations around the cost of what it takes to run it as is, if you've already established those relationships, it's a natural conversation to have about, okay, now we're looking to do this. What is the cost difference? What are the pros and cons? And then what do we also need to do from a DR perspective now? When we had this in our data center, we just put it on tape, walk out the door and put it in a safe somewhere. And that was our DR strategy. Now we don't have that option. What do we do? Well, from a FinOps perspective, obviously, you want DR to be there and not everything US West 1 or US East 1. But also, you don't want to separate your app and your database. If you separate your app and your database, A, you have latency problems, but also you run the risk of higher ingress and egress costs between your regions or interregional costs. An architect that's not as familiar with public cloud, or somebody that's just learning it, may not realize that and just think, well, if I put my app and my DB in separate zones or separate regions, that's our DR strategy. And FinOps can come in and say, well, from a cost perspective, we run into these additional costs. Let's look at something else. Can we use a DR service? Can we use a replication, something like that? So that regardless of what the project is, there's the ability for FinOps to influence the direction. Another big one is celebrating every success. So regardless of how small the company is, regardless of how small the FinOps team is or the IT team, celebrating success is very important, from the biggest companies down to the smallest, right? It helps build unity, build traction, and build awareness to what FinOps is trying to do. Something that is, let's say you have some detached disks that got skipped by a cleanup script or not looked at all, costing you $3,000 a month in your $10,000 a month subscription. By calling those out, working with the DevOps or IT team to get those cleaned up, you've suddenly saved 30% of your cloud bill for that subscription. To a massive IT organization, that's a drop in the bucket. It may not even make a savings report, right? But to a smaller organization that is focused on growth and watching these dollars very, very closely, that's a huge win. And that is something to celebrate across the entire organization, right? A 30% cost savings on what we've been doing in public cloud, a big step forward, lessons learned, and we can move on. So every success is important, and it's equally important to acknowledge those that helped with that success. So by calling out engineers or teams or even just the overall group that worked on the effort, builds unity, it builds awareness, and gets them motivated to do more. Next time you go knock on the door and say, hey, I have this suggestion based on the reporting that I'm doing of doing XYZ because it could save cost. If those engineers have already seen the benefits and have had them celebrated, they're much more willing to sit down, look at the options, and say, yes, let's do this, or let's dedicate time to it, versus, nope, don't talk to us, we're engineers, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. If they don't realize the impact it has to the business and the celebration that comes with it if we celebrate all of our successes. And then there's Cloud Plus, right? So Cloud Plus is the new thing, which is everything outside of public cloud that is SaaS to track. Again, you'll see cost reporting. Like I said, it's on every one of my slides. This is intentional. It is very important to build this into your reporting as much as possible. So a lot of SaaS organizations out there are starting to support Focus. They're starting to support third-party FinOps tooling. So it's important to embed everything in there. Are you using OpenAI? Are you playing with OpenAI and you want to see how much that costs in addition to your public cloud? Connecting your tool to it and running those, adding that to your reports, even at a very high level. You may not have to go down to the per request or per answer level, but just the total cost to show, hey, our playground is costing us X amount of money. And then we can monitor that and see as we change things, benefits the organization as a whole. You can plan your AI strategy, you can build all of that. And that goes for all of those SaaS tools out there, the Databricks, the Snowflakes, the other ones that you can connect to. This also allows you to find areas of opportunity for excess spending in SaaS. Are you using different tools for the same purpose? Are you using Power BI and Tableau? Are you doing different things that you could consolidate under one product that you already have a license for, or switch off of a more expensive license to a cheaper license, things like that. So FinOps can uncover other savings opportunities outside of public cloud within the SaaS environments to benefit the company as a whole, benefit the bottom line, and show FinOps worth within the organization. One tip I do have, as well as when you're selecting that FinOps tool, and again, using your FinOps principles to do it, a lot of those FinOps tools connect to third parties automatically, or you can integrate with them. So find one that has some of those third parties already integrated in with their platform or on their roadmap that you can then deploy. And then all you have to do is add your connection. You don't have to deploy another tool. You don't have to do exports. You don't have to do imports. It saves you a lot of time on the long run. And most FinOps tools now support a lot of those integrations. So better to do it up front than try to find a workaround or merge data together. Even with the great advances of AI, merging data together from different data sets is still somewhat cumbersome. So I try to avoid it at all costs. And by integrating it with a single tool, single platform, I found I'm able to get clear reports, defined reports, consistent reports for my stakeholders. And really, that's it. I just wanted to, again, take a step back, look at the fundamentals, look at some of the suggestions, and give some advice on those starting their journey or just finding out about FinOps. So thank you for the time.
Sorry, I was on mute. My bad. So thanks, Peter, for the talk. I think you highlighted a lot the reporting and all the information. I think when we talk in the panel about the context that these reports needs to go, I see Frank over there, so Frank will provide a lot of insights. So there is definitely a lot of insights on the reporting topic and what I said about the on the engineering side, that it's all about the incentive. You can say it in the economical way, in the business way, also in the emotional way. Like you can gamify, people can play around and people can leverage that for creating a better culture for that. And engineers, as talking as one, is like we are not the evil or whatever.
Right.
We have our incentives, we have our goals, and we are measured
Yeah.
for certain things. If you want to measure because about the cost performance, then you make it a requirement.